Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition.
I have been waiting for this moment for 2 years. I'm coming at you hard. This is my David Frost moment with you
That
two.
is so cool.
I've been waiting for it for 15 years.
Okay, I'm going in right away with the big questions. First of all, Sid, I think you have the answer to this. What is with the banjo? Tell me about the banjo. It's the most brilliant and odd and interesting choice for a key instrument for the theme song, as a recurring instrument for your underscore. I'm stealing it from my movie.
Well, I really think it was like 2 years before we did Land of the Lost. There was a big movie out there with Burt Reynolds.
Oh, yes, we know that movie.
Deliverance.
Deliverance.
Yeah.
And Deliverance had a banjo all the way through it. So when we were scoring Land of the Lost, I said to the composer, I love that sound, and I really think, let's try that to see if it works with the dinosaurs.
Right.
And
Did he think you were out of your mind, or did he say
well,
no?
yeah, well, it was like an old-fashioned idea,
Right.
you know? And Marty and myself really insisted upon it, because when I told Marty about it, he saw the movie too, and he said, wow, that's an incredible sound.
Yeah,
So
right.
let's go for it. And it really, really worked.
Science fiction, adventure,
Yeah.
banjo. Yeah, absolutely. But it is, and that's the most memorable part of it. Tell me about the theme song itself. How was that written?
There was someone that worked for us. He was in our creative department too. His name was Alan Foshko, and a great, great friend of ours. And Alan and myself and Marty, we worked together on Land of the Lost.
Right.
Well, we also, you know, I was looking for who could write it.
Yeah.
So we found this Linda Laurie at the time who had written some really great songs. So, you know, you put her together,
Right.
and that's how it, you know, that's how it
And she was a
started.
friend of Alan Foshko's, actually.
Perfect.
And she hit it right on the nose, because with all of our shows, we wanted a little story to be told in the theme song, just to set you
Only
up.
because television, if you don't get them in 30 seconds,
That's
they're
it.
gone.
Tell them the story,
And
puff and
kids-
stuff.
Yeah.
Sure, you
And
got
of
the
course,
whole
kids leave in 15.
Right, right.
I don't know how we got here or why, but I think we're in another world.
What makes you say that, Dad?
I think it must have happened when we went over the waterfall. Remember how it never seemed to end? Just like it seemed to fall through a hole in space.
The writers that we had, I mean, it was pretty heavy to get Star Trek.
David Gerald.
Yeah, who I think won an Emmy,
Sure.
and, you know, and
Did you get pushback at all from the network about the level of science fiction that they were writing? Because they wrote profound science fiction. It could have been primetime storytelling.
never. It was really bizarre. We got more notes on shows like Lidsville and Puff and Stuff and the Bugaloos than we did on Land of the Lost, because it was so intelligent.
Well, the real
And-
thing was, I don't know if you remember, we had only shot a few shows before it premiered. We hadn't finished them. So the first week we were on, NBC did advertisements that we were getting ratings like the $6 million Man. So they left us alone. Once it's a hit, they
Right.
leave you alone.
That's right.
You're in trouble. They
Right.
call you when you're in your bathtub on
Right.
Sunday night.
Sure.
Right.
Well, I'm going back to the theme song again. So for those who don't know, Wesley, he sang. Now, how did that happen?
When we were casting Land of the Lost, Wesley was someone that I knew. And I said to Wesley, you know, you'd be perfect. You got to go in. I'm not going to help you. You've got to make it happen yourself.
Got it.
With the casting director. And he was on
Days of Our Lives.
Days of Our Lives
Right.
at that time, so he was pretty popular out there.
Right.
And he went in, I think we looked at 3 people, and he nailed it. It was perfect. And then we brought in girls, because we wanted to make sure that we could match the father, the daughter, and the son, so they all look like they came from the same family.
Right, exactly.
I mean, the most important thing in doing any television show, unlike the movies, they got to be likable. They can be a villain, but they better be likable.
Right.
Just like Witchy Poo.
Right.
She was likable as a villain. And, you know, that's, the casting, I think, was,
Sure.
that's important in any you know,
And
show
the
you
question
do.
that you asked about him singing,
Yeah.
I knew that he sang, so that was another thing. I said, go in and see if you can hit it.
I had a great conversation with him about, you know, because again, I was your audience, and as a kid to look up and see on those opening credits a one-name actor, I was fascinated when he came and said, "I'm going to just be Wesley." Did that strike you as kind of a cool idea, or were you thinking, "What is he doing?"
Well, for us, that was not uncool because we were on the road for
Right.
2 years with Liberace as our
We just
as his
had
opening
one
act, so we already knew that.
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect. I love that. I think he told me that it was his manager who had sold him on the idea, and he's been living it down ever since. Because I think by the third season, or maybe the second season, he was Wesley Ure.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I'm going to stay on the casting thought for a moment. Years have gone by. It's okay. We can talk about these things. So season 3 comes along, and here comes Uncle Jack. Now, did you have a sense by the end of the second season that you weren't going to get Spencer back? Did that happen during the hiatus?
He was starting to make noises in the second season. You know, the first season was okay, but
Right.
I never could figure out where he was coming from. He was the only one of all the actors in all the shows that disappeared.
Yeah,
As of
interesting.
today, he's gone. So
Was it like a Robert Reed moment where he just thought should be doing other things, or he just didn't like
We
the
don't
cash?
know, you know, we just couldn't
well, I
make
think
it.
he was doing commercials at the time, and it could have been the money, because we couldn't afford, Saturday morning,
Right.
you paid, you know,
Yeah.
if we could get away with it, we would have paid underscale because we were losing money on every show.
Of course. What's your interaction creatively on a week-to-week basis while you're making the show? How did the brothers function?
Fighting all the time.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I think Sid takes more time in the, you know, he spends more time than I do in the creative end, because I got the heartburn of running the thing.
The financial,
And then during the show,
Sure.
and like during the movie,
Right.
you know, I'm there every day,
That's
you
right.
know, supporting the whole situation.
Ollie, get in the cave.
When I was 11 years old, our dad took me to, and I remember the name of the theater, the Paramount Theater in Providence, Rhode Island. And I saw a movie there that I had never forgotten. And I still feel like it's one of the great movies because every kid, I'm 11 years old, in the world, even today, loves dinosaurs. This was the first movie that I know of with moving dinosaurs, because as a kid, you see them in books in
Sure,
school.
of course.
You know,
What was the picture?
1 million BC with Victor Mature. It scared the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always, in my mind, said, oh my God, if we ever get the opportunity, we got to do a show with dinosaurs.
Great.
Because it had never been done on Saturday morning.
Right.
And so the first idea was Swiss Family Robinson, a family. No, the mother, we can't have the mother there. It's too scary for the mother to be there. But the father, the son, and the daughter get trapped there. And we had to have other humans there.
Yeah.
How can you just relate to dinosaurs?
Right.
And anyway, we didn't have enough money to do that show, so you could only do maybe a minute or no more than 2 minutes or a half a minute of dinosaurs in each show.
Right.
Will? Holly.
Where? Ari.
The original idea was maybe like a Tarzan character, and we immediately threw that out. And then I said, you know, monkey, man comes from monkey. That's where Chaka came from, the tribe, the Pakunis.
Sure.
And then lizard comes from dinosaur. So that gave
There
us,
you go. Well, that's where I was going to get to. 'Cause
Yeah.
in a way, the dinosaurs were your sort of good heavies, and sort of. So I was fascinated by why then have Sleestaks as well. But there you go. That's
So
interesting.
we also had at least a dozen artists. So we would you know, we would discuss a concept like the sleaze stack, not knowing exactly how it looks, and have everybody take a shot at it.
Right.
So that's how we wound up, you know, with what we have now.
And we knew to a child that, you know, that they had to look really big. And so they were like 7 foot tall, sleaze stack. They were sleazy and they were stacked high.
And
So,
we had,
you know,
of course, we got Bill Lambier from the Detroit Pistons. He was only in high school then to be a sleaze stack. And of course, he credits us with being evil in the NBA. But you know, the one thing I want to bring up about the dinosaurs, it wound up being a major problem because we were shooting the dinosaurs on film.
Sure.
And then we couldn't afford to shoot film on the stage.
Yeah, you were
so we
shooting
shot,
tape.
When we married those together, the projector had palsy, and you couldn't, you know, it was shaking. And it took experts at Disney came in to compact video. And one night I went in there at 2 in the morning. They had a projector on the floor in 1,000 pieces. I woke Sid up. I said, Sid, we're finished here. This will never, ever work.
it's not working. Yeah.
But they got it together.
Yeah. It was the Disney studios that did
Sure.
that.
But the show itself, were you shooting in essence multi-camera style?
When we shot on stage, we were multi-camera.
Yeah.
The entire show was in front of a blue screen.
Exactly.
The biggest blue screen constructed.
Right.
Yeah, it was huge.
The biggest reason to use multi-camera and not film style is that, you know, whether it be our puppets or it be the sleaze stacks, you know, wearing those costumes is very, very difficult for the people in there. And when you're shooting film style, once you get your long shot, you've got to go for the close-up. When you have your 3 cameras, hopefully you have everything.
Right. And you had 3 sleaze stack. Did you
So
sit and
we
do the
could
budget
afford.
and figured, yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. We've got
that's
so
all.
much
We had-
green material.
We had 3 sleaze stacks with a lot of mirrors.
Right. Exactly.
No, it always looked, it didn't look like more than 3, but kids thought there were more.
For everyone's understanding, your original show you shot at what was once Warner Hollywood, and now it's called The Lot. You were not the blue screen set, but the home cave. These were not large sets.
There were never a set. There was hardly ever a set. It was
We were on
the
a big
actors were playing.
We were on a big stage at Warner Hollywood, which is now was Goldwyn.
Right.
But we were on
a few plants, a few plants.
and there were a lot of cutouts, and you know that.
Sure.
You know,
I know when we talked about it early on, I said every detail that has survived in my brain for 30 years deserves to be in the movie, because look at that impression that gets made. You know, the home cave, the crevasse that's constantly being run over and Grumpy's stuck on one side or the other. I'm always fascinated by process and by, especially on a very technical show. Couldn't really rehearse these episodes much in advance. Did you sit at a table and read a script, or was the script coming in so late?
never had a table.
Never
reading.
had a table
Every week we were right into the shooting again.
Got it.
What the director would do is run through, shoot,
Off you go.
and not too many takes. Couldn't afford it. And of course, Marty was on stage with a shotgun.
No.
No.
When you're on, you gotta
get
do
going.
it at that
Sure.
point.
Yeah.
Thinking about finishing these shows off, you go in, you hustle. Because of shooting the stop motion and all, how much time would it take to finish an episode from the day you walked off the stage?
The post-production took time.
Yeah.
But you know, that was done carefully. You know, we had great people doing it.
Such pros.
I
Yeah.
mean, we were-
Gene Warren.
Gene Warren, he did the dinosaurs.
He won the Oscar for The Time Machine. I mean, look at the kinds of people that we got on such a low-budget show.
That's great.
And we were lucky with all of our shows
Sure.
that way. We had the best people.
So the show in the 70s, obviously, well, it hasn't changed a lot, but ratings are king. So the show hits the air, the numbers are there. When do you begin to feel it out there in the zeitgeist? When do you start to feel back in the 70s that it's really clicking? Did you?
Immediately.
It was
feel
the first episode. It was a blockbuster.
You don't feel you want to know if you don't fall off.
Yeah.
But it's sustained. You know, you don't get picked up unless you're sustained on Saturday morning.
Right.
Or now it's the same thing.
Sure.
It was strange because all of our shows, I guess we got a little cocky about it, but every show was a success. Everybody was waiting the next year to see what we
was
were
the
going
next
to,
show?
what we were going to come up
This
with.
was the easiest one to get picked up to sell.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the dinosaurs and the way we did it. It was.
Well, it brought in an older audience,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't used to that.
Right.
You know, it was all young kids. So the young kids, of course, we had.
Right. Well, in the first show out the door, what was the first show out the door?
Puff and Stuff.
It was
HR
Puff and
Puff and
Stuff.
Stuff.
It was. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
we didn't even know when we got the order. Marty looked at me and said, "Go to the library and get a book. How do we do this?" You know, we knew nothing about shooting a show. We
Well, the reason
shot
that-
it on film.
The reason that
It
we
was on
got the
film.
show, you know, that's why we went so far over budget there. That almost creamed this Puff and Stuff. But the reason that we got Puff and Stuff on was that the year before, Hanna-Barbera came to us because they didn't know how to do the banana splits. So NBC and Kellogg's were coming into our studio. We had this big factory at the time. So they would, and then Larry White, who was the head of program, he said, "Why don't you create your own show?" And you know, so we did a character called Luther at a World's Fair for the Coca-Cola Company, and you know, we developed it. And the way I sold it was, we did that book, and then I heard that Larry White was going to take a train back to New York, so he was going to be on the train with no phones. So I brought the book to Union Station. I went up to the information booth and I said, "Where is car so-and-so?" And the guy hits me in the side. It was Larry White standing next to me. So on Monday, he picked it up.
Boom.
Right.
Into his hands.
So that
Good
was our
producer.
first-
Good
Right.
producer.
Yeah, this is quite the salesman.
That's it. But for Saturday morning in general, live action, I mean, that's what's remarkable, too. It was a purely animated universe. So
Right.
that was a real revolution to begin with.
Well, we always said we made like living cartoons. Couldn't go as fast as them,
Right.
but we did pretty good on Puff and Stuff. That moved pretty fast.
Sure.
Oh, it makes me think of the Slee Stacks. You know, we're on this little stage. The first day, the director came to us and said, "How can you run away from these guys? I mean, we don't have room."
Right.
And I said, off the top of my head, "It's like a dream. When you have a dream and someone's chasing you, you become paralyzed and you can't get away." And so the director said, "Gee, that's a great idea. Okay, let's do that."
See, a good director as well. Juicy rationalizations. You have to rationalize your problem.
Well, what about Frankenstein?
Sure.
He moved even slower.
Sure.
And that character was pretty scary.
Right. Well, and the Slee Stack as well. There was their own theme. I mean, basically, there was that sort of great. Anytime you got to the layer of the Slee Stack, you had that theme. Of course, I always love, and trust me, it was the first thing I knew I was going to put in the movie, that wonderfully large sign, "Beware of Slee Stack." So if there's any confusion, but somehow everybody kind of just missed the sign. That's what I found amazing.
Well, people just don't read, do they?
No.
No, because they're looking at the picture
Right.
and listening to what the actor is saying.
Oh, yeah. No, that's.
I didn't miss it.
Any one of those poor guys ever pass out? Were they good? The Lambiers of the world, did they?
No, we had 3 basketball players.
Yeah.
No, they were
good.
happy to do this.
Yeah.
They were coming out of high school.
Sure.
And they were making a living. They were in SAG.
Right.
Well,
That's
what were they
it.
getting? About $100 a day? No, I don't know. But
Yeah.
not much.
Tough job, though.
Yeah.
Think about it. You'll recall when we were making our movie, the Slee Stacks came to work the first day, and like every good actor, all of the fellows who had come in to audition, "Oh yeah, I've done a lot of suit work, great experience." It's like when you say, "Can you ride a horse?" "Sure, I can ride a horse." Fantastic. Come in that first day, big heavy suits, they can't see, have to be hydrated between every take. Suddenly, day 2, we show up and my assistant director says, "We're having a Slee Stack rebellion," you'll recall. And
Oh, yeah.
that was exactly it. They thought, well, this is hard work. We're going to hold them up. And I think they tried to double their rate. And we put that down pretty quick. But the rest of the day, we were all wondering who's the one who started
caused the
the
problem.
who started the mutiny, and they all look alike. They're identical. So Will and I all day long were looking like that was the one. Look at how he's walking.
It could have been Enoch. He could have been the cheerleader.
Sure. Well, there you go, Enoch. Let's talk about Enoch. Was there an idea from the get-go that there would be this intelligent
Oh yeah,
Sleestaks?
you had to have that.
Yeah.
Who was controlling the Sleestaks? Who spoke for the Sleestaks?
Yes.
And then the Zarn wasn't, I don't really remember, not too many shows and very, very brief.
I think it was in one show.
2 shows.
Two shows, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
You know better than us.
Yeah.
Right.
I will tell you that Enoch made an impression, because when I'm asked, it's usually in descending order. Everybody who stops me, are the Sleestak in the film, is Chaka in the film, and of course then you get a lot of questions about Enoch, and which is great, because we knew early on that we really wanted to make sure that
Mostly Chaka and the Sleestaks. So.
Sure. Phil Paley, who was 11 at the time, playing
Right.
Chaka.
Yeah, he had a black belt, right? This little kid.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great kid.
Oh,
He turned out to be a great guy,
Lovely
too.
guy. He
And
came
we
by
see
us.
everybody still.
Yeah.
The only one we don't see is the father in
Sure.
Land of the Lost.
He may still be there. You never know. He
Right.
probably
No,
didn't get out.
he's living on a ranch somewhere.
Sure.
That was where he wanted to go.
Got it. With the casting of Phil, was he one of just a huge open call, or did you meet him and thought he's the one?
You know,
We
I-
did have an
we had
open
a call,
call,
but I have to tell
but it
you.
was at the height.
I don't remember.
We
He
wanted
was a little kid.
We wanted,
He was little for his age.
and we didn't want a little person in there,
Right.
you know,
Right.
because we wanted him to move like a kid.
We were
because
hoping-
Chaka was young.
We were
you know.
hoping that Philip Paley was 18, so we didn't need a welfare worker.
Oh yeah, that cost us.
That's what happens. That's right. You got to school him, and you got to do all those things. Well, tell me about the end of the series. It must have been a little bittersweet. I mean, the goodbyes are always tough, and you had some really wonderful young actors too. Do you remember the last episode? Finishing the last episode?
You didn't know it was the end, though.
That often
You
would
didn't know
happen.
until like months later.
Oh, okay.
We're used to the end.
Right.
It was the beginning that's always the surprise. Right.
Well, because then we had another show ready to go.
Sure.
Right after that, and another
Sure.
one after that.
Yeah.
So.
No, while
we
the end was happening, we did our first primetime series, Donnie and Marie.
There you
so,
go.
So we were working on another. Then we had our park in Atlanta at the same time.
There was never any cross casting, was there? You never, no actors ever appeared in any two of your
There was.
seasons.
Yes,
Oh
was
yeah.
there? Billy Hayes.
And what did Billy, other than Witchy Poo?
She played the. She
We
played
need a
the
genie.
genie in Lidsville with Charles Nelson Riley.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so she did cross cast.
That's
Yeah, I think
And-
she's the only one that
Wait a minute, Martha Ray, who was Benita Bazar, was Boss Witch in the Puffin Stuff movie,
All right.
because we couldn't get Betty Davis. Betty Davis hung up on me. When I asked her to play a witch, she said, "How dare you?" You know?
Fantastic. All right, guys. I thank you for filling in some of the gaps for me.
Thank
It's
you.
fantastic.
This is your family. Right.